You think someone like you has the right to interrupt a disciplinary meeting. The words cut through the air like a blade, deliberate, slow, and heavy with condescension. The man who spoke them stood at the head of the conference table in a crisp navy blazer, his palm resting confidently against a stack of printed reports. His name was Harvey Gaines, Regional Manager of Ecosystems Africa. The room fell into a tense silence as his voice settled like dust on every shoulder. He wasn't shouting. He never had to. His authority came wrapped in smiles too sharp and statements too rehearsed. At the far end of the room, a young woman in a gray blouse clutched a folder to her chest like it was a lifeline. Her name was Monica Nardi, QA engineer. Diligent, quiet, consistently overlooked. The meeting had been framed as a review of integration performance metrics. Everyone knew what it really was, a performance, a public takedown disguised as team alignment. Harvey was in full rhythm now, weaving phrases like inconsistency and lack of initiative into a script he had perfected. Then, with a smirk, he said it. Maybe this role's too much pressure for some people, Monica. I'm not saying you don't belong. Just, not everyone's cut out for this pace. That's when the voice came. I reviewed those logs last night. The man who spoke sat near the corner, hands folded, eyes steady. He didn't flinch. His voice didn't shake. She didn't make the error. The deployment variable reset itself during batch sequencing. Heads turned. Subtle movements, small glances. Everyone recognized the speaker but didn't really know him. He was the new guy. The one transferred from Lagos 3 weeks ago. Jerome Mensah, soft-spoken, mid-40s, skin weathered with time and quiet experience. He had asked few questions in meetings but took copious notes. Never late, never loud, until now. Harvey's eyes locked on him. "You're new here," he said, practically smiling, barely through orientation. "And you think you get to speak in a room like this?" Jerome didn't blink. "I speak when facts are misrepresented." Monica looked up, barely. Her eyes flickered toward him, then away, as if unsure she had really heard what she thought she heard. A few seats away, Logan Boateng stiffened. Dana, another engineer, glanced at the wall instead of the table. Harvey took a breath, calibrated his charm, and leaned back. "You know what I think, Jerome? I think you've misunderstood your place." The room stayed quiet after that. The meeting ended 15 minutes early. Harvey mumbled something about internal realignment and walked out. No one looked at Monica. Jerome remained seated as the others filed out one by one. His face was unreadable. At 10:42 a.m. the next morning, his company badge stopped working. HR didn't offer coffee or comfort. The meeting was short. "We've reviewed yesterday's incident," said Melissa from People Operations, voice flat. Challenging a team leader's authority during a structured performance dialogue is not conducive to a healthy team environment. Jerome said nothing, didn't argue, didn't apologize. He just stood, nodded once, and walked out. Past the framed posters about integrity, past the glass walls that let sunlight in but never voices out. The floors beneath his shoes echoed louder than any speech. Outside, Accra's warm air hit him like a truth he'd been waiting to feel. He didn't go home, not immediately. Instead, he walked. Past the coffee stand where employees paid too much for lattes they barely drank. Past the back lot where interns smoked quietly during breaks. He passed the old brick wall with the Ecosystems mural painted years ago by a young team bursting with pride. He paused only once to glance up at the building that still bore the name he had helped register 23 years earlier. Ecosystems Africa, a company built on values, now twisted into slogans. At a cafe 2 blocks away, he sat in the booth he used to share with Elijah Adjei, his co-founder, his oldest friend. Elijah arrived late, wearing a faded university tee under a blazer and carrying 2 black coffees. He didn't speak at first, just looked at the man who used to be Raymond Okoye, CEO, before quietly becoming Jerome Mensah, observer. "You didn't just get fired, did you?" Elijah finally asked. "No," Jerome said quietly. "I got erased." Elijah exhaled, heavy and low. "So, what now?" Jerome opened a worn leather notebook. Every page was filled with notes, behavior patterns, Slack messages, deployment inconsistencies, team dynamics, private humiliations made public. "This isn't just one bad manager," he said. "It's a culture. One where fear is currency and silence is survival." Elijah leaned back. "And what do you want to do about it?" Jerome looked out the cafe window, his voice barely above a whisper. "I want to remind them who built the system they think they control." That evening, he returned to the small flat he'd been renting under the name Jerome Mensah. The badge didn't work anymore. His Slack account was deactivated, his email locked out. But the company's arat was deeper than tools. It was embedded in tone, in performance reviews, in who got invited to meetings and who didn't. He opened his laptop, typed a single email. Subject: Findings Internal Review. Recipient: Raymond Okoye. He attached 3 scanned pages from his notebook, then hit send. Not to HR, not to legal, but to himself, as a line in the sand. The next morning, at 6:48 a.m., Monica Nardi sat at her desk, eyes on her monitor but not seeing. Slack was quiet. No mention of Jerome. Not even a euphemism like personal reasons. Logan passed by and paused. "You okay?" She nodded. "He didn't deserve that," Logan said quietly. "No," she said. "He didn't." Across the room, Harvey was laughing again, gesturing over a new dashboard layout. Monica stared, and somewhere beneath her skin, something that had long stayed quiet began to shift. At 10:02 a.m., a private elevator opened on the top floor. The receptionist blinked twice when she saw the man exit. "Sir," she began, "we weren't told I know," he said simply. "I'm not here for announcements." He walked past her, past the executive lounge, past the portraits of former CEOs, and into the corner office that still bore his name in fine print. Raymond Okoye stood by the window of the company he created, watching Accra breathe. He didn't feel vengeful. He felt ready. He picked up his phone and called Elijah. "It's time," he said. Then, in a calm voice, "Schedule the meeting. Conference room 17B. No agenda, just names, mine on top." He hung up, then turned around, because justice doesn't need noise. It needs presence. And, for the first time in years, Raymond was no longer silent. The morning on the 3rd floor unfolded like any other. Keyboards clicked with the rhythm of routine. Chairs creaked in predictable harmony, and the office coffee machine hissed softly, as if exhaling the same stale breath it did every weekday. But Monica Nardi sat frozen in front of her screen, her fingers idle, her eyes staring through lines of code she could no longer see. She hadn't spoken to Jerome since the meeting. Not really. No one had. And now he was gone, just like that. Officially, he had resigned due to personal reasons. Unofficially, everyone knew what had happened. No one dared say his name out loud, not even in whispers. But the silence around it was too loud to ignore. Monica hovered over the last Slack thread where Jerome had left a message late one night after helping her debug a deployment issue. "Good work, Monica. The system didn't break. It exposed itself." She read it over and over, as if those words could explain what had gone wrong or why her chest felt like it had collapsed inward. A soft knock on her desk pulled her back. It was Logan. "You okay?" he asked, his voice low. She nodded instinctively. "He didn't deserve that," he murmured. "No," she said quietly. "He didn't." Logan glanced toward Harvey's glass-walled office, where laughter now drifted out like nothing had ever happened. "Have you noticed," Monica whispered, "how he only targets certain people?" Logan's eyes didn't move. "New hires, juniors, people who look like us." Monica shut her laptop. "I don't know who Jerome really was, but he had guts. He said the truth out loud, even when it cost him everything." Logan nodded. "He made me feel like maybe we weren't crazy." That evening, back at his apartment, Raymond sat at the edge of his couch, staring at the closed laptop in front of him. He didn't open it. He didn't need to. He'd already sent the email, the one addressed to himself. It hadn't triggered alarms or responses. It wasn't meant to. It was a signal, a quiet declaration that the gathering of evidence had ended. Now came the confrontation. The next morning, just after 7 a.m., the executive elevator slid open on the 21st floor. Raymond stepped out. No badge, no announcement, no disguise. The receptionist blinked in disbelief. "Mr. Okoye, sir. No one told us." "I know," he said simply, and walked past her. He didn't stop at his old office. He walked to conference room 17B, the room where real conversations used to happen, back when truth didn't need formatting. He placed a leather folder at the center of the long table and sat. At exactly 3:02 p.m., Harvey entered the room, suit pressed, laptop under arm, tension barely masked by forced composure. He looked confused when he saw Raymond seated there. "Mr. Okoye," he started, rising halfway. "Sit," Raymond said calmly. Harvey sat. Melissa from HR followed, stiff, unreadable. Two board representatives entered next, both in tailored suits, exchanging glances of uncertainty. No one quite knew what this meeting was. There was no calendar invite, no subject line, no agenda, just a name. Raymond opened the folder and slid a piece of paper across the table. "Read it," he said. Harvey leaned forward. His eyes scanned the printout, and his face paled. It was a transcript pulled from a private Slack thread he thought had been deleted. In it, he had written, "That kid thinks he's a hero. All he did was embarrass me. HR's got it covered. Culture fit. Excuse always works." Harvey looked up, mouth slightly open. "This is taken out of context," he tried. Raymond didn't blink. "You humiliated a capable woman to protect your ego. You manipulated HR to shield yourself. You fired a man without realizing he was the one person in this building who could end your career in one meeting." Harvey's voice shrank. "If I may—" "You may not," Raymond cut in. He turned to Melissa. "Effective immediately, Mr. Gaines is reassigned. Compliance oversight, Boston branch. No direct reports, no strategic access. Weekly ethics debriefs. If there's resistance, involve legal. I'll handle the board. Melissa, clearly blindsided, blinked twice, then nodded. Understood. Raymond stood. This meeting didn't happen. What was said here stays here. I'm not here for scandal. I'm here to fix what broke. Then he leaned in slightly, his voice still level. But if I ever hear about you silencing someone again, I won't send a calendar invite next time. He turned and left the room. Downstairs on the 4th floor, Monica was packing up after another long day when her Slack pinged. A new message. From R. Okoye at ecosystems.africa. Subject line, Let's talk. It simply read, I heard your voice. I never forgot it. Meet me tomorrow, floor 21. She stared at the screen, frozen. Her hands trembled as she read it again and again. She didn't know what awaited her upstairs, but for the first in a very long time, something stirred inside her that she couldn't quite name. Hope. Monica arrived early the next morning, far earlier than she needed to. She didn't put on makeup. She didn't rehearse what to say. She wore a simple gray blouse and black slacks, hair pulled back, eyes steady but uncertain. The 21st floor was nothing like the 4th. The carpet was thicker, the lighting warmer, the air stiller like a place that didn't belong to people like her. As she stepped off the elevator, a woman in reception glanced up with mild surprise but didn't stop her. The door to room 203 was already ajar. Inside, Raymond stood by the window, back turned, his posture calm and deliberate, as though he'd been there for hours, thinking. Come in, he said without looking. Monica stepped inside and gently shut the door behind her. I wasn't sure you'd actually reach out, she said quietly. I wasn't sure either, he replied. Then he turned. His eyes met hers with warmth, but also a weariness, like someone who had fought too many battles alone. He gestured toward the chair across from him, not a desk between them, just a small round table with 2 steaming cups of coffee already set. She sat down slowly. He didn't speak for a long moment. Then he said, My name is Raymond Okoye. I founded Ecosystems Africa 23 years ago. Her lips parted slightly. You're that Raymond? He nodded. I stepped away from day-to-day operations a couple years ago, but I started hearing things. The culture had shifted. People were leaving without saying why. Others stayed and stopped speaking altogether. I had to see it for myself. She looked down, her fingers curled around the edge of her seat. You chose our team, she said, voice shaking. You chose the QA wing. Not at first, he replied. I chose the forgotten places, because that's where truth usually hides. He paused. But then I saw you. The way you were treated. The way you stayed quiet when you shouldn't have had to. The way everyone else did too. She inhaled slowly. I tried to stay invisible, she admitted. I thought that was safer. But after a while, the silence felt like betrayal. Raymond leaned forward. And still, you spoke up. So did I. And I got fired from the company I built. There was a pause. The weight of those words filled the room. Why are you telling me this? She finally asked. Because it's time to rebuild, he said, voice steady. And I can't do that alone. He reached into his jacket and pulled out a small envelope. What's this? She asked. He slid it toward her. Open it. Inside was a business card, simple, white, elegant. Her name printed at the top, Monica Nardi, Culture Lead, Integrity and Ethics Division, Ecosystems Africa. Her breath caught. "I'm not qualified," she whispered. "Yes, you are," he said gently, "because you lived it, because you understand what this company forgot." She looked up at him, eyes suddenly wet. "What if they won't listen?" "They will," he said, without hesitation, "because I am." When the next morning, across the office, Harvey sat in a small cubicle in the Boston branch, a world away from the glass office he once lorded over. His new role, compliance oversight analyst, was stripped of power, titles, and respect. He reviewed policy documents, attended mandatory ethics workshops, and filled out forms that no one truly read. He pushed back at first, tried to argue, but no one from headquarters responded. Raymond's name, even whispered, closed doors before he could reach them. In his silence, Harvey found no power, only isolation. Back at Ecosystems in Accra, the company began to shift. Quietly. Posters with hollow slogans came down. HR procedures were rewritten by people who had once been crushed under them. Anonymous reporting was replaced with transparent feedback systems. Monica began holding private one-on-one listening sessions on each floor. Logan was the first to show up. He sat stiffly across from her, unsure. When Mr. Cole spoke up, he said, I started to believe maybe I wasn't imagining things. Maybe being the only Asian kid on an all-white engineering team wasn't why I kept getting ignored. It wasn't, she said, and it won't keep happening. He looked at her for a moment, then slowly smiled. She hadn't seen him do that in weeks. That same day, Raymond walked unannounced through the integration floor, heads lifted, startled. He nodded at Dana, who blinked in surprise. How's the Jenkins pipeline? He asked. Stabilized, she said. Monica rebuilt the documentation. Good, he nodded, then added, You ever think about leading a sprint? Dana's eyes widened. Me? Yes, you. She smiled shyly. Maybe. Raymond nodded and continued walking, not to micromanage, just to be present. Because he had learned something on that floor, companies don't fail because the code is wrong. They fail when the people writing the code stop believing their voice matters. On Wednesday afternoon, Raymond walked into a meeting on the top floor of the Town Hall Planning Committee. It was usually a formality. Agenda slides, roadmap chatter, superficial DEI highlights. This time, he walked in holding nothing but his notebook. We're not doing the town hall like we used to, he said calmly. No suits, no scripts. We're telling the truth. The room stilled. The committee blinked. Sir, legal has already approved the script. We're doing something different. And that Friday, invitations were placed quietly on desks across the building. No subject line, just a time, a location, a name. By 9:50 a.m., the main auditorium was full. No stage decor, no corporate theme music, just a single mic and a spotlight. Raymond stepped forward. I want to tell you a story, he said, about a man who joined this company not long ago. He was quiet, observant, stayed late, helped his teammates even when no one asked. The room grew still. He saw a woman blamed for a mistake that wasn't hers. He saw how the room went quiet when injustice happened. And one day, he spoke up. Raymond paused. That man was me. Audible gasps rippled through the crowd. Some people turned instinctively toward the back, but Harvey was gone. Raymond continued. I didn't come back to test you. I came because I no longer trusted what I was hearing from up here, so I went down there. and what I saw broke me." He stepped aside. Behind him, the screen lit up with 4 words in bold: "Courage to speak." "This isn't a speech," he said. "It's a beginning." He announced a new system: confidential reporting, overseen by independent review, a mentorship program led on those who had once been silenced, new leadership metrics that gave weight to culture and empathy, not just output. Then, looking toward the front row, he said, "Monica Nardi." She froze. Slowly, she rose and walked to the stage. Raymond handed her a small envelope. She opened it. Another card. Same title, same division, same mission. But now, handed to her in front of everyone. "She's not here to fix what we broke," Raymond said. "She's here to help us build something better." The applause started small, then grew, not because someone told them to clap, but because something in the room had finally cracked open. For the first time, truth didn't echo in whispers. It stood under the light. On Monday morning, the building didn't buzz with gossip or applause. There were no victory speeches, no media coverage, no articles pinned on the break room walls. But something had changed. Subtle at first. The air carried a lightness that hadn't been there before, as if the weight of unsaid things had been lifted just enough for people to breathe. It began in the smallest ways. At the daily stand-up, junior engineers who once waited to be addressed now spoke without prompting. Project leads who had interrupted others out of habit began to pause, actually listen. In the QA wing, where silence used to wrap around desks like fog, voices now floated gently between monitors. Monica noticed it first during a one-on-one with Dana. They sat together in one of the newly designated integrity rooms, quiet spaces spread across each floor, no cameras, no notes, just privacy and presence. Dana fidgeted with her hands, her voice soft. "I don't know how to say this, but ever since that town hall, I feel like I can breathe." Monica didn't rush her. "I used to write ideas down in a notebook," Dana continued, voice trembling. "Ways to improve the rollback system. Better error messages. I never shared them. I didn't think anyone cared." Monica asked gently, "Do you still have the notebook?" Dana nodded, reached into her bag and pulled out a small worn journal. Monica took it with both hands like it was something sacred. "Let's look at it together." That same afternoon, Logan walked into Monica's new office on the 21st floor. Gone were the cold colors, the rigid lines of corporate prestige. Plants lined the windowsill. The lighting was soft. On the whiteboard behind her desk, someone had written in bold marker, "Build with honor." Logan held out a folder. "This is from the QA team," he said. "Some of us want to start a peer mentorship circle for new hires, for people who don't feel seen." Monica flipped through the hand-drawn diagrams and notes. "You did this?" He shrugged. "If Mr. Cole could put on a hoodie and sit with us for 3 weeks, we figured we could meet people where they are." She smiled, proud and quiet. "He'll want to see this." Logan paused at the door before leaving. "I never said it before, but thanks for not disappearing." Monica didn't answer with words. She just held his gaze and nodded. Across the hall, Raymond sat in a quiet glass conference room with Elijah and 2 board members. The table was bare. No pastries, no custom mugs, no distractions, just intent. Raymond spread out the new leadership evaluation forms he'd worked on with Monica. "From this quarter forward, performance reviews will be weighted by 3 factors: contribution, culture, and courage." One board member leaned back, skeptical. Raymond, I admire the sentiment, but some of our partners are expecting output. What if these changes slow us down? Raymond met his gaze. What slowed us down was the rot we didn't see, the whispers we ignored, the talent we drove out. If you want speed, protect trust. If you want innovation, make people feel safe to speak. Elijah added, We've already seen results, less anonymous HR complaints, more internal ideas shared than ever before. This isn't theory, it's traction. The room was quiet. Then one board member finally said, Let's do it. It's time. Later that week, Monica returned to the integration floor. Not to supervise, not to enforce, just to sit. Her old desk was still there, untouched. She placed her bag beside it, opened her laptop, and inhaled deeply. Across the room, Logan looked up. You're back? Monica smiled. Just for today. I needed to remember where this started. You think it'll last? He asked. She tilted her head. What? This change? He nodded. She was quiet, thoughtful. It will, if we protect it. In Boston, Harvey sat alone in his compliance cubicle. He no longer had a title anyone cared to use. No team, no input. His days were spent revising policy manuals and logging internal audits into a shared drive. His messages to headquarters were met with form letters or silence. He hadn't seen the inside of a real conference room since his reassignment. That afternoon, his inbox pinged with a company-wide message. From Monica.Nardi@Ecosystems, Africa. Subject, The Courage Chain, a living archive of voices. Inside was a link. A new initiative. An open archive. Employees could share stories, moments they had spoken up, or someone had spoken up for them. Anonymous or named. No judgment, just truth. Harvey stared at it for a long time, then he closed the email. At headquarters, Raymond stood by the wide glass windows of his office. Below, the building moved with a new rhythm, people stopping to talk, not because they had to, but because they wanted to. He pulled a simple white card from his pocket. It read, Your voice is enough. He placed it gently on the windowsill and stepped away. This wasn't about leadership anymore. This was about legacy. And this time, Raymond wasn't building code. He was building people. 3 weeks later, the Courage Chain installation opened in the building's ground floor atrium. A curved steel and glass structure embedded with touchscreens, each displaying recorded stories from employees past and present. Interns, engineers, custodians, analysts, all voices etched into digital memory. That morning, Monica stood at the edge of the exhibit, watching Logan guide a group of interns through it. They stopped at a terminal where a voice began to play. It was Dana. My name is Dana, and I stayed quiet for 3 years. I thought that's how you survive in tech. But then someone said what I couldn't. And for the first time, I believed I mattered more than the code I wrote. The interns didn't speak for a while. Then one of them, a young black woman with thick braids, said softly, I didn't know people here said things like that. They didn't, Logan said. Not until now. Upstairs, Monica stepped into a new manager onboarding session. 10 new hires from across the continent. Different languages, different skin tones, all looking nervous, clutching notebooks, unsure of what this new chapter meant. Monica stood in front of the room. Welcome, she said. I'm not here to tell you what Ecosystems is. I'm here to tell you what it almost became. The room grew still. 3 months ago, this company looked fine on paper, but underneath, people were disappearing. Not physically, but emotionally. Their voices, their ideas, their presence. She paused. People don't leave because of the work. They leave because they feel invisible doing it. Some nodded. One wrote furiously. That won't be your legacy here, but you'll have to choose it. Every day. Across the floor, Raymond continued his quiet routine, walking into departments unannounced, asking questions that had nothing to do with metrics and everything to do with meaning. In the strategy wing, he stopped by a corkboard where 2 analysts were pinning up index cards. "What's this?" he asked. One of them, Jenna, looked up. "We're calling it the watch and listen wall. Anyone can pin a moment where someone protected someone else's voice, big or small." Raymond raised an eyebrow. "You're building a witness board?" Jenna smiled. "If people can see the good, they'll start to expect it." That evening, Raymond met Elijah on the rooftop garden. The city of Accra shimmered behind them in the golden hour light. "You ever think we'd get here?" Elijah asked. Raymond exhaled slowly. "Not like this, not through the fire." Elijah chuckled. "I still remember you walking out of that HR room after they fired you as Jerome. You didn't say a word, just took your mug and left." Raymond smiled faintly. "It was the first time I'd been invisible inside something I created." Elijah looked at him. "And now? Now it's not mine anymore. Not really." "That's what leadership is," Elijah said. "Letting go of the title, holding on to the mission." Downstairs, Marcus the janitor stood quietly in front of the courage chain. He'd worked there 11 years, cleaned every floor, watched people pass without ever seeing him. He reached for the touchscreen and typed, "I remember when no one looked at me." Then, one day, Mr. Cole asked me if I'd eaten. I had, but I never forgot the question. He pressed submit, and his voice, too, became part of the chain. That night, Monica stayed late in the Commons. The old executive wing no longer bore the sterile edge of hierarchy. It had been softened, repurposed. The glass walls remained, but they were no longer barriers. They framed openness, motion, voices. She walked slowly past the whiteboards filled with handwritten notes, sticky tabs with ideas, sketches, quotes. At one corner table, her very first sprint note had been laminated and pinned beneath the glass. She ran her fingers over the edge where she had once scribbled in frustration. "Maybe I'm not cut out for this." Someone had added beneath it, in a different pen and handwriting, "You're not just cut out for it, you're shaping it." She closed her eyes for a moment, then turned off the lights. The building didn't go dark, not anymore. The light now came from the spaces between people, from conversations, laughter, even the quiet pauses that no longer felt like fear. Justice hadn't stormed the building. It had walked into the room, sat down, and listened. On Thursday morning, Raymond returned to the 4th floor. Not as Jerome, not as CEO, just Raymond. He stepped into the QA wing and stood by the door without announcing himself. The hum of monitors and soft conversations greeted him. Nothing dramatic, just work, just people, just presence. Dana looked up and smiled first. "Back in the trenches today?" Raymond nodded. "Wanted to see if your Jenkins pipeline still hates me." "We rewrote the whole thing," Logan called from his desk. "Didn't want to risk you debugging at 2 a.m. again." Raymond chuckled and walked to the workstation where he had once sat anonymously. And for the first time since leaving that chair behind, he sat again, not in disguise, not as an experiment, just as himself. Monica appeared a moment later, coffee in hand. She handed it to him. "Thought you might come back eventually." He took it and smiled. "I owed this place one more sit-down, one more memory to overwrite the old one." She leaned against the edge of the desk. "We've started getting interview requests from other companies," she said. "They want to know how we did it, how we rebuilt trust." He nodded. "Let them ask, but don't give them a checklist." She laughed. "No slides, no bullet points. Got it." Her voice quieted. "There's something I never asked you." He looked up. "When you stood up for me that day, when you spoke in that meeting, did you know what would happen?" He paused, then answered honestly. "I didn't know how far it would go, but I knew the system I helped build wouldn't protect me. It hadn't protected anyone else." Monica's eyes softened. They said nothing else. They didn't need to. That afternoon, the final addition to the Courage chain went live. No fanfare, no official announcement, just a quiet update in the system interface. The new section was titled "The Ones Who Stayed." It featured short reflections from those who had chosen to remain through the transition. No names unless they chose, just truths. One entry from Dana read, "It wasn't the new leadership that made me stay. It was the feeling that I could become the leadership I had once waited for." Raymond read it twice, then closed the terminal. That evening, the company hosted a team dinner not in a ballroom, not catered by PR. Just long tables set up in the commons, paper plates. Food people actually wanted to eat. Someone played guitar. Someone brought homemade plantain stew. People laughed, told stories. At one point, Logan raised a plastic cup and said, "To the company that used to reward silence and now builds monuments out of voices." There was a cheer, a few tears. Monica sat beside Dana, who was now talking to a new intern about rollback protocols and accidentally laughing at her own joke. Raymond didn't speak during the dinner. He didn't need to. He watched. And in watching, he finally saw what he had spent so long trying to put into words. It wasn't policy. It wasn't process. It was community. Later, Monica joined him on the terrace just outside the Commons. The lights from the building glowed warmly behind them. "You never announced your next steps," she said. "Are you really stepping back again?" "I am," he replied. "But this time it's not because I'm tired. It's because I trust what's here." She studied him. "You'll still be around, though, right?" "Quietly haunting hallways," he smiled. "Maybe. Or maybe I'll finally fix up that community tech lab I've been dreaming about." She looked toward the skyline. "Do you ever wish it hadn't happened like this?" He was quiet for a long moment, then shook his head. "No, I wish I had listened sooner. I wish I'd looked closer. But the pain, the reckoning, that's what made this real. We didn't just change policy, we changed people." "And they changed each other," Monica said. They stood in silence, the kind that felt full instead of empty. The lights of the building shimmered in the reflection on the glass, no longer sterile, no longer cold. Inside, Dana was laughing with that new hire. Logan was still scraping the last spoonful of cobbler from a plate. A new card had been pinned to the watch and listen wall. It read, "He didn't save us. He reminded us we could save each other. Raymond saw it but didn't point it out. He just let it be." This wasn't the end. It wasn't even a victory. It was the thing they had all been fighting for. A place where you didn't have to raise your voice just to be heard. A company that finally understood justice isn't loud. It's consistent, it's human, and it endures.